All right, the film's finished, and it's time to think about how you're going to get it to an audience.
We ended up being released through Fox, and which is where David Begelman and Bruce McNall's company had made a deal.
I don't think 20th Century knew what it was, and many times a studio in the marketing department doesn't know what a film is.
There were previews, and they were ludicrous because David Begelman arranged them, and the first one was going to be in the Valley. Strangely enough, it was going to be at 3 in the afternoon. And we weren't told much more than that. And we were put in cars and we drove to this theater, and the parking lot was full of school buses. And little fifth graders were getting out of the buses. He had decided that it wasn't Raiders, but what it was some kind of a children's cartoon film. So I will always remember sitting in the back row and seeing all these little heads, and every now and then a teacher's head, you know, and the movie, well, you know you're doomed. The movie starts and the kids don't have a clue. I mean, they'll get excited when a spaceship goes by, but there's no way they can follow the connective tissue and something like that. So it wasn't like we gave them cards and asked them what they thought, but the feeling in the room was obvious that it didn't really work for this crowd. And then we take it to some other places, and of course, this movie has to find its audience. You can't just, you know, get a random collection of 300 people off the street and think that you're going to, you know, find out if it's going to be successful with everybody, because you know going in it's not. I mean, but Begelman didn't, and I think that started a snowball effect.
We offered to help them with the campaign. We used the teaser trailer, which is the end credits, to try and get them on board to have an understanding of what we were trying to do, and they just didn't get it. The truth is, they didn't pay to finance the movie, so their only investment in it was the P&A cost, and they just didn't want to spend the money on those P&A costs for a movie that they didn't understand.
And so somebody decided, well, we're going to make it available in drive-ins in the South.
We urged them to go, you know, New York, Chicago, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and that we could build word of mouth there, because it wasn't, that's kind of where the core audience would have been for the movie, and then it could have you know trickled to other cities, and we would have done much better.
If we'd had social media back then, it would have turned it into something wild and wonderful. It was that anyway, but not many people went to see it in theaters.
But enough people scattered among these audiences were lighted by it and began to form the fan clubs that coalesced on when the internet came around and generated the internal energy for its life, really, from the bottom up, and to this day, you know, make it what it is. They found each other, and then they started a newsletter, and the two who, well, it's unfair to say there were only two. The two that I've remained in contact with, Denise and Mike Okuda, but I could name Jim Vanover and Steve Madison and a lot of people who would not let this thing die through the most difficult time when you didn't have the internet, you didn't have a way that you could make a fan base aware of what was going on. So they cranked out, mimeographed, and then Xeroxed newsletters, wrote fan fiction.
I would bump into people occasionally, including Mike Riva, who would say, hey, can you imagine it's becoming a cult movie? And actually, there were a number of people that I knew from the production, on the producing end, who would come, I would bump into, and they would say to me that it's starting to develop a following.
Everywhere we played, all over the country with me and the band, the Beaters, there'd always be 25, 30, 35 people there that were not there to hear the guy sing the #1 record. They were here to see the guy. They were here to see Pinky Carruthers.
They would park themselves right in front of the stage because we were the warm-up act. And they're wearing this pink, and they would be going, Pinky Carruthers, we love you.
And they would bring me pink gifts, you know, all kinds of weird stuff like that. You know, it was kind of wild. And at that time, it was kind of unexpected.
I could not believe it. I was going, this is going to be a hit over time, you know, because anything that creates that kind of a thing with people and they really identify with it, It's bound to go somewhere.
I didn't really know it was going to be such a success until I was taking this trip down the Colorado River. And I met all these college kids, and they were, "You worked on Buckaroo Banzai? Oh my God." And they knew all the lines. And I swear, he said, "No, it's the biggest thing in college." He says, all of us guys, that's what we watch. And we sit and drink beer and watch Buckaroo Banzai. And then I realized, wow, they caught a whole audience that I had never even thought about before.
And my husband used to say all the time that it was a stoner movie. So anybody that would come up to me and say, "Oh, I love Buckaroo Banzai," then I'd know that they were total stoners.
Every so often, somebody will say, you know, "You made a movie that's the reason I'm here, and it changed my life." And I expect that they're going to say Back to the Future, but they'll say it's Buckaroo Banzai.
What's interesting is how many know the film. Young people know the film. And they quote it all the time, the famous lines from the film.
They'll always say, "Remember, no matter where you go, there you are."
They always ask me to say, "Laugh while you can, monkey boy."
You be the judge. There are people who say, this is a love it or hate it movie, you know, and I think that's being unfair to it, because I think there's also a whole universe of people who are totally indifferent to it. So we have people who love it, hate it, and they just look at it and say, you know, I'm not annoyed with it, but I have no idea what it is, and I'm certainly not going to recommend it to anybody. And then there are people who just can't get enough of it. And that validates the whole enterprise for me, because so many people have been stimulated in a good way that it just says, do this stuff, filmmakers. Go out and just, you know, take your best shot. What can happen? It's only a movie.